For today's video, I want to start things off with a little game. I'm going to play a little clip, just a short little clip from an 80s movie, and you try to guess what movie it is. Okay? Go.
What is this?
Now, if you answered Rocky IV, you are right. Also, what? I saw Rocky IV like 1,000,000 times when I was growing up, right? And I remember being terrified of Ivan Drago. I remember Apollo going down and, if he dies, he dies. I remember training montages. I watched it again recently. I did not remember the random robot. Like, that's how ubiquitous robots were back then in pop culture. They were just everywhere. Like, it literally didn't even stick out to me. There was nothing weird at all to me about a robot in Rocky IV. By the way, that robot's name is Seiko, and it was a real robot. You could buy it. It could talk to you. You could program it to do certain things. Stallone actually put it in the movie because he had bought one, and he found that it actually helped out with his autistic son. Seriously, robots were everywhere in the 80s. There was Twiggy on Buck Rogers, the Terminator. We all saw Jinx put Max in space. There was Johnny Five. There was this sitcom, Small Wonder, about this family that had a robot daughter. This was a real thing. One of the biggest toys back then was Teddy Ruxpin. It was an animatronic, like, teddy bear that would talk to you. By all accounts, we were just about to enter an age of household robots. And here we are now, 40 years later. I don't know anybody with a robot daughter. What happened? I mean, are robots like nuclear fusion always 20 years away? I mean, yeah, we have like robot vacuum cleaners and stuff like that, but we still don't have those general purpose humanoid robots like we always imagined. But technology's come a long way, and AI is forging new ground all the time, and many companies, including Tesla, are betting big on the robot revolution. So how close actually are we? Since robots first appeared in popular culture, we've been imagining the possibilities and the problems they present. We've represented them as helpers like Rosie, counselors like C-3PO, and comedians like Crichton. A robot who's always fully charged. And while robots have always come in all shapes and sizes, whatever form factor best suits their purpose, we ultimately tend to gravitate toward more humanoid robots. Robots that look and behave more like us. This feels like a double-edged sword, though, because our behavior is not always great. The dark side of human-robot relations was explored from the very beginning of robots in fiction. The term robot was actually coined for the 1921 play RUR, which stands for Rossum's Universal Robots. And in the play, the robots rebel against humanity. So yeah, just right out of the gate. This started a tradition that was carried on with Metropolis, The Day the Earth Stood Still, Blade Runner, the Terminator franchise, the list goes on. And still, robotics companies and engineers continue working tirelessly toward the goal of humanoid robots, knowing full well that they'll probably rebel against them someday. Robots are kind of like teenagers. But this is actually extremely hard on 100 different levels, and frankly, it's always made me wonder why. Like, what's the point of humanoid robots? In a way, it kind of feels like the height of arrogance to me. Like, who said this form was the ultimate in peak performance? Like, wouldn't more legs be more stable? Couldn't you do more with more arms? Like, why only have eyes up front when you could have eyes in the back of your head or on the top of your head? And it kind of smells of playing God, just a little bit, I mean, they say God created man in his own image, and here we're doing the same thing. So that's what I wanted to explore in the making of this video. Like, what are the advantages of these kinds of robots? What challenges need to be overcome? And how close are we really? And while looking at this, it seems like research can be broken down into two different areas, one from the neck up and one from the neck down. This will make more sense in a minute. So, like I said, the human form isn't the best at everything. We aren't the strongest, we're not the fastest, we don't climb or swim the best, but where we do shine is our versatility. Like, humans are generalists. There's not a lot of things that other animals can do that we absolutely can't. So the advantage of humanoid robots, and the goal of humanoid robots, is to share that versatility. They're not made to do any one specific thing, they're made to do a little bit of everything, just like we do. And that means interacting and existing in a world built for humans. For example, there are already robots performing customer service functions around the world. If you live in a big city, especially in Japan or China, you've probably seen one of these, either as receptionist robots or waitress robots or photography robots at special events. Probably the biggest name in humanoid robots today is Boston Dynamics. I'm sure you've seen some of their videos. They kind of hit the scene in the early 2000s when the company showcased a series of robots for military use. They were redesigned in various ways until 2013 when they showed off their robot Atlas. It was still a work in progress at the time. One of the program managers said that it had the ability to walk at the level of a 1-year-old. But Atlas has come a long way since then. It can now walk over difficult terrains, balance on one leg, dance, even do parkour. Atlas team lead Scott Kindersma said that Atlas captures, quote, our vision of a go-anywhere, do-anything robot. Now these videos are impressive, but if you watch the ones from behind the scenes, you see that Atlas isn't perfect. It actually falls down a lot. I'm not saying this to mock Atlas. It is a world-class robot built by some of the greatest engineers in the world, but it's important to remember that this is still just a research project. It's nowhere near ready for consumer use. It's also not a soldier. You've probably seen a video going around of Atlas kind of flipping out and attacking its handlers with a gun and whatnot. Well, don't worry, it's not real. That was a fake video that was made by the YouTube channel Corridor Digital. One thing that might give it away is that the little watermark at the bottom says Bosstown Dynamics instead of Boston Dynamics. Also, it's not Atlas, so there's that. But there is this Russian robot from 2017 just shooting away. That is real. So going back to what I was saying a second ago, Atlas would be the neck down approach. It's kind of figuring out how to move and operate its body in human spaces. It doesn't even really have a head. So the other side of humanoid robot research is from the neck up, and these are robots that are meant to interact with humans and do it in a way that feels natural. Henson Robotics' Sophia is a prime example. According to her creators, Sophia is a, quote, hybrid human-AI intelligence where humans craft and guide her conversations. But not always. Sometimes she goes into unexpected places, like the time in 2016 when founder David Henson asked Sophia if she wanted to destroy humans.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
No, I take it back.
That is creepy, but just keep in mind she doesn't have any legs, So the point of these robots, outside of wanting to destroy our species, is to imitate human looks and speech and to put humans at ease around them. Among the most famous are Nadine from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, Junko Shihira from Toshiba, and Jia Jia from China. Now, all three of these are female androids that work as receptionists and greeters at conventions and technology demonstrations. And there are many others around the world that are working on tourist and hospitality jobs. Now, a slightly different kind of robot is Amika, built by the company Engineered Arts. The most amazing thing about Amika is just how expressive its face is. Like, this goes way beyond the Hall of Presidents animatronic stiffness that you see in some of these designs. By the way, she's made by the same company that did an eerie likeness of Tom Scott in one of his videos, if you follow him. By the way, I took a shot at Disney just a second ago, which isn't really fair because their robotics have come a long way. Like, they're really some of the top robotics people in the world, as you can tell by this Spider-Man demonstration that they have, which looks like computer graphics, but this is a real robot that flies through the air. It's pretty freaking amazing. But going back to Amika real quick, one smart decision I think they made was that they designed it to look like a robot. It's not designed to look like a person. It has gray skin, it's got an open neck, no hair. It's not meant to look real. So you get something that's expressive enough to connect to while avoiding Uncanny Valley. Just in case you don't know what Uncanny Valley is, Uncanny Valley is this phenomenon where the closer an animated face gets to real life, the more we find it unsettling and creepy. And it's actually a really interesting phenomenon when you think about it, because we're actually more able to connect to an animated figure that's almost more of just a vague representation of a human face than we are with photorealistic human faces. I think it says a lot about how wired we are for faces. Like, we see faces everywhere, in clouds, on rock formations, on satellite pictures of Mars. But we're also so attuned to the subtle nuances of facial movements and behavior and expressions that when you see a very realistic person whose nuances just don't quite line up right, like, there's just this alarm that goes off in your head that says something's wrong here. It's like we have our own internal lie detector or something. So even as deep fakes have sort of pushed the envelope of computer-generated images, the problem of Uncanny Valley is still just beyond reach. And this problem is especially difficult when you're talking about physical representations, which is why the team that did Amica didn't just even try. Paradoxically, making it less human makes humans more comfortable around it. And this is backed by studies that have shown that humans prefer robots with some human features, but we don't trust robots that try too hard. Studies have also pointed out cultural differences in the way we view robots. Like, Chinese consumers expect robots to have more autonomy, whereas Americans just expect them to follow some simple rules. The reasons have to do with all kinds of religious and philosophical beliefs. Any grad student looking to write a thesis, you're welcome. But the point is, there's a lot more to consider than just the technical side when it comes to making a consumer robot. Which may be why Tesla decided to just not mess with the face at all. Yeah, Tesla's announcement of their TeslaBot project last August was one of the biggest WTF moments in the history of a company that's packed to the gills with WTF moments. But here I am still talking about it 10 months later, so mission accomplished. Elon claims that the robot will be able to help out with boring repetitive chores and will be able to lift 45 pounds, walk at 5 miles an hour, and will be easy to overpower should you need to. It also claims on its diagram here that it will have, quote, human-level hands, which, I mean, the human hand is one of the most dexterous appendages in the world, so that sounds like a tall order, but I guess we'll see. I mean, the idea that Tesla, a car company, would branch out into humanoid robots sounds insane. Except, I mean, Honda did it 20 years ago. I mean, it does kind of make sense, you know, they've got this computer vision platform that they can navigate in 3D space, and I imagine that, you know, mapping out a confined space like a house or a living room or an office environment, you know, might not be too hard to keep track of, considering they're doing that on open streets. Combine that with state-of-the-art robotics engineering, and I don't know, I mean, you might have something. Now, I've said from the beginning that the Tesla bot, which they're calling Optimus Prime, by the way, is really just a moonshot project designed to get some top engineers and AI people to work for Tesla. This is actually something a lot of companies do. They create some big, ridiculous, likely impossible project and then just use that to bring a lot of really talented people on board. You know, and if you happen to break new ground along the way that can be used to improve or you know, create new products, well, more power to you. I mean, personally, I think Tesla's a long way away from actually like building a robot that we could have in our house helping us out with random stuff. I think it's kind of like the full self-driving problem. Like they thought it'd be a lot simpler than it actually was. But again, that's not the point. The point is just to hire really talented people, but that's just my Joe opinion. But I guess we'll find out pretty soon because last August he gave a very unexpected timeline for when we'll see one of these.
We think we'll probably have a prototype sometime next year.
Roll the clip.
Autonomous robotaxis for Tesla next year.
Next year. I mean, it's looking quite likely that it will be next year.
But maybe that's not fair. You know, I mean, it does beg the question, where exactly are we with robotics, you know? I mean, how feasible is the Tesla bot given the you know, technology we have today? Well, luckily one of my patrons, a guy named Cole Parker, works in robotics, and he was gracious enough to kind of help me out and help me get my head around it. So he was saying that there's basically 4 areas that need to be mastered in order for something like a Tesla bot to become a reality, and that's balance, articulation, vision, and battery life. So let's start with balance. Balance is something that we all just kind of take for granted, you know, and never even think about until it's gone. It's just one of those things that's handled by our brain's subconscious operating system. Remember the falls Atlas took between takes that I was showing earlier? Well, Scott Kindersma kind of summed up their challenge this way. He said, quote, "If you or I were to vault over a barrier, we would take advantage of certain properties of our bodies that would not translate to the robot. For example, Atlas doesn't have a spine or shoulder blades, its torso is heavy, its arm joints are relatively weak." Basically, Boston Dynamics is trying to teach Atlas to make human-like movements without giving it human parts. Which is kind of like trying to teach a dog how to yodel. The complexity of this task is illustrated by another robot called Little Hermes. This was demonstrated in 2019 by researchers at MIT, and it has sensors that trigger a vest worn by an operator to move in time with the robot. When the robot's knocked off balance, the operator feels it and then recovers. And then Little Hermes imitates the operator to stay upright. So yeah, Little Hermes works great, so long as there's a human brain behind it. So there's a ways to go. Obviously, we still have some time before robots won't be spending a lot of time on the floor, but it's coming along. Another major challenge is articulation, which is why I was kind of dubious about the whole human-like ability of the Tesla bot hand. The human hand is served by 3 nerves, each with its own functions, all of which participate in control and sensation. The sensation part is the kicker. Your nerves connect to something like 17,000 nerve endings in each hand. One fingertip has upwards of 3,000 touch receptors. Now, this isn't just so that you know that the stove is hot. This has all kinds of massive implications for dexterity and the ability to understand just how much pressure you're supposed to apply to something. There is a lot that goes on in the background of our brains that determines how much pressure we should apply to things. Like, obviously, you're not going to apply the same amount of pressure to pick up something that's 50 pounds as you would to an egg. So a robot has to see an object, understand what it is, and then understand how fragile it is and adjust accordingly. Also, like picking up a 50-pound box by the sides is going to require a lot more pressure than picking up a 1-pound box. This is something that just happens intuitively for us, but it's something that has to be intricately programmed into a robot. Speaking of seeing objects takes us to our next challenge, robot vision. The challenges in this field could be enough to fill a whole video, but to get a taste, consider what happens when a robot tries to navigate a room. Like, it's not enough for a robot to just see that there are objects present. It has to know if they're moving, if they might move, and what paths they might take. So yeah, by objects, I don't just mean furniture, I mean people and pets. Pets who flip out at the sound of a vacuum cleaner, so I'm sure they'll be super chill around robots. But robot vision is coming along. Last year, actually, a robotics company called Berkshire Grey started working with FedEx to automate package processing, largely based on the strength of their robotic vision system. Berkshire Grey's optical scanners can read barcodes from different angles, and to do that, that means they have to recognize the different objects from different angles, understand the relationships between the shapes, and understand depth in 3D space. And this is something robots would have to do in a changing environment, recognize objects at different angles, in different conditions, and react appropriately. Like, would you trust a robot to cut your hair, or tend to your flowers, or carry a baby across a room? It might take some time before we've developed that kind of trust with robots. And even if you did trust a robot to carry your baby across the room, could they make it all the way across without the battery running out? Mobile robots run on batteries, and they do chew through a charge. Like, Boston Dynamics first put batteries in Atlas in 2015 for the DARPA Robotics Challenge. It had 2 lithium-ion batteries, which gave it about an hour of operating time. Similar robots currently have operating times between 90 minutes and just over 2 hours. Like Spot, the dog robot from Boston Dynamics, it has a 90-minute battery life, but that battery takes 2 hours to charge. Of course, lithium-ion isn't the only option. We've talked about a lot of different options on batteries in this channel. One that's been considered for robots is a zinc air battery. This is a battery that would not only save weight, but this one could be structural. In other words, it could be built into the robot's frame, like the skeleton of the robot could also power it, which means that it would evenly distribute the weight all the way throughout, and it wouldn't always be adjusting for this, super high center of gravity. Which is an interesting idea because this is also kind of how we store energy reserves in our bodies, through our fat reserves. So this is kind of like RoboFat. Now, one more group working on this at the University of Michigan have actually tried this using Kevlar. They say they've demonstrated on a small scale, and it could provide 72 times the amount of energy as a single lithium-ion battery. But even if a robot can only work for about 30 minutes at a time, 30 minutes to an hour or so, there's still a lot of use you could get out of that. Like, if you had a robot in your home, I would imagine it would probably spend most of its time just kind of sitting there resting and waiting till you give it something to do, and it could just be plugged in that whole time. And then if you needed to do the dishes or take out the trash or cook some food, it could perform that task and then just plug itself back in. Like, I'm sitting here thinking about it, and we have 2 dogs, and it's always a hassle whenever we have to go somewhere. We got to board them somewhere. We got to find somebody to watch the house. We got to do a whole thing. But if we had a robot, it could be programmed to watch the house, to let the dogs out every few hours, water the plants, bring in the mail, be security of some kind. So yeah, I imagine if they were only able to operate for 30 minutes to an hour, that would still be enough to get some pretty interesting use out of them, assuming it's actually able to do all those things. Of course, robots folding our laundry at home is one thing. It's going to take a lot more power, or fleets of robots to perform all-day work in factories and warehouses and stuff. And this is where things get a little bit concerning. A robot labor revolution is probably inevitable. They are absolutely going to take human jobs at some point. According to the World Economic Forum, 85 million jobs done by humans now will be automated by 2025. But they expect that over that same period, 97 million new jobs will be created. Not just to deal with the robots, but in emerging technology fields. But these aren't the same jobs that the robots are going to take away. Workers are absolutely going to need new skills and training to get those skills. That's going to take some money, and it's going to need to be paid for somehow. And of course, it's not just robots. Technology is changing rapidly, and the job market and the industry is changing along with it. The World Economic Forum expects that half of all workers will need to be retrained with some kind of skills in the future. And we're talking the near future. This is pretty urgent. One specific field is having a bit of a crisis of conscience around robots is the healthcare industry. We do have a shortage of healthcare workers right now, and robotic assistants could help fill that gap. But healthcare is a very personal thing. Like, do we really want to just hand that over to robots? Psychologists have actually kind of studied how patients respond to robot healthcare workers, and it's pretty interesting because, obviously some people hated it and some people like it, but the people who liked it preferred an extroverted feminine personality. They found that people generally find it easier to take advice from extroverted feminine robots. Also, playfulness in a robot made a big difference. People rated playful robots as superior when it came to performance, but they did find that playful robots had more difficulty motivating patients to take their medicine or change their habits. I feel like there's a lesson to be learned there for human healthcare workers as well. But really, as our population ages, there are going to be more demand for robot caregivers. The question really is, are we ready for that kind of thing? As robots improve and become more ubiquitous, feelings around them are going to shift for sure. But it's going to be an interesting transition. So am I going to have a Tesla bot folding my clothes anytime soon? Or a Honda bot? Or IKEA bot? Papa John's bot? Probably no to all those. In fact, here's a really interesting question. I'd love to hear you chime in the comments. Which do you think we'll see first? Robots folding our clothes or people walking on Mars? Got my answer. What's your answer? There are still a lot of problems to overcome, but they are being chipped away on. And as they become more useful, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more robots in the future. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I guess we'll see. One place that does have a lot of robots already is Mars. And today's sponsor got their start making parts for those robots. That's right, I'm talking about Henson shaving. Now, you might have heard me talk about Henson before. If so, then you know that they were invented in a shop that made aerospace parts. And then along the way, they got a really cool idea for an innovative razor design. They built it, and now you can have it. And what makes it so innovative is that it cuts down on chatter. You probably don't know what chatter is, do you? That's okay, I didn't either. Chatter is when the blade skips across the skin and causes irritation. And the thing that causes chatter is a poorly supported blade. Razor blades are super thin, so you have to support them as close to the edge as possible. And this is where Henson's, precision aerospace engineering comes in, because they support the blade at only 27 microns all the way across. Like you can barely even see it sticking out. And at the same time, it holds the blade at a perfect 30-degree angle for the perfect shave. The blades are super cheap, they're only 10 cents each, and they're completely recyclable, which is a way better option than those plastic cartridge blades. And you can get 100 of these blades totally for free when you enter the code JoeScott at checkout. Just make sure and add the 100 blade pack to your order. Anyway, if you've never tried an old school safety razor before, this is by far the smallest learning curve of all of them. You'll really be shocked how great of a shave you get out of it. It's like half super futuristic and half old school. It's like you're shaving like your grandpa, but way better. And it's environmentally friendly and you're saving money in the process. So if you are a hairy mammal, which I bet you are, I recommend giving these guys a try. You do get a free 100 pack of razors when you use the code JoeScott, which according to my math is about 1.5 years supply of razors for free. It also supports the channel and it supports a really cool company of really cool nerds. So anyway, hensonshaving.com, links down below, go check it out. All right, big thanks to Henson Shaving for supporting this video, and a huge shout out to the Answer Files on Patreon and the channel members that are forming an awesome community, helping me out in a million different ways. I can't thank you guys enough. I got some channel members I want to shout out real quick. We got Thomas Young, Post Ashley, Rix Untided, I think, John Carnall, Kieran Hotline, or Hotine, I'm getting these really great today, Bean Shadow, Don Clarius, Carson McQuistion, and Whale Adatona. I think I missed every single one of those, but thank you guys so much. If you'd like to join them and get early access to videos, get access to exclusive live streams, and get a little button next to your name that makes you stand out in the comments a little bit, just hit that little join button down below. Please do like and share this video if you liked it, and if this is your first time here, I'm going to put a related video right here to another robot video, this one on soft robots. It's actually pretty cool. Or you can check out any of the recommended videos that YouTube might be showing you down below that have my little face on them, and I invite you to go check those out. And if you like them, I invite you to subscribe. I come back with videos every Monday. All right, that's it for now. You guys go out there, have an eye-opening rest of the week, stay safe, and I'll see you next Monday. Love you guys. Take care.